Proceed.
All right, who is going to hold the Bible for this? All right.
I know you'll miss it.
It's short and sweet. Okay, raise your left hand, right hand goes on the Bible. You want to move over here so you're on the hand. Yes, go stand there. There you go. All right.
I, Jim Blair,
Do solemnly swear that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith. And that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as council member for the town of Fletcher, so help me God. All right, that was easy.
And family and friends, if y'all want to take photos or anything, this is the time to do it. We'll make space for it.
You're next.
It just didn't register to me that I'd be sworn in. I've been here forever.
see, I brought the chairs.
You just didn't feel like he's swearing at you this evening.
Jim needs to come sit on the dais now. Jim needs to come sit up here. I don't know where he's going.
I think he's going to take some pictures with his family.
Okay.
I, Sheila, do solemnly swear that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith. And I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as Mayor Pro Tem for the town of Fletcher, so help me God. Sheila Franklin. I do. You do it. Sign both of these.
And we thank you. You want to take a picture? Yeah, go ahead.
Yay!
Thank you, Sheila,
Oh,
serving in that
thank
role.
you.
I want a picture of y'all too.
There's your food. I'm in the way.
I know, I was thinking.
You photobomb.
Yeah, can I get one group picture with everybody? Everybody ready for that?
Oh,
And y'all can run away. Last part of the relationship, all right.
Good job.
Thank you all very much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, now you go to work.
Doing what?
Sorry. Thank you for letting us disrupt your.
No, you're fine.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Bye. Good to see you. Now, you need to bring a crowd like that every meeting.
That was a good sized group.
What a good sized group. All righty. Jim, congratulations.
Thank you.
And Sheila, thank you for serving in that role.
Oh, thank you.
All righty, moving on to public comment. I don't think there's anybody signed up, and I'm guessing nobody wants to speak. All righty. Moving on. Moving on to updates from council. I'll just make one update. This was in my office, and it says 2 people from the Lions Club dropped this off, and it's presented to the Fletcher Town Council. From the Lions Club, it says Fletcher Town Council, in grateful acknowledgement of your support of veterans of this community. It is not always monetary or grant money, but just a verbal acknowledgement you give. It is this reason that the many thousands of veterans in your community, along with their immediate families and friends, that we wish to thank you for your verbal and other support as we live and give back to our community, presented November 2023 by American Legion, Disabled American Veterans, Veterans of Foreign Wars. So we appreciate that. And maybe we can find somewhere in Town Hall to put that at, since it's to everybody.
We
All
can
right.
probably find some room in the cabinet out there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
works for me.
I'll do that.
Another day, I was gonna say, I saw the traffic trailer on Fanning Bridge.
Okay,
And
good.
it looked good, told me I was doing the speed limit. So, there we
Now, that
go.
might have been DOT's. but
Oh, was it DOT's?
It may be ours. yeah.
Okay, well, there's one out there.
As long as you're in the speed limit or close to it,
You're good.
you're
We're good. Any other updates from council? All righty. Moving on to the consent agenda. Any questions, comments, concerns related to any of those items? Okay. Moving on to item number 4. Next week, we'll have the public hearing to consider rezone request or 2023-01. It's a request to rezone 9 parcels on Cane Creek and Presley Hill Road from R2 to Neighborhood Business District, and we'll have that public hearing next week. Mr. Manager, do you have anything ahead of time on that one? I know we've already heard a little bit last month.
Yeah, so you got all the information in your packet. Eric briefed you a little bit, Eric Rupa, last month. And essentially, there's 9 parcels. It's several properties right on several of them front on Cane Creek Road and some on Presley Hill. And it's a mixture of residential and commercial there. The former A1 Tire is one of the parcels, and there was a medical use there. So this would give the opportunity to put it in a zoning designation that would allow commercial and residential as allowable uses. Because the commercial ones are, they're allowed non-conforming uses right now, or what they call legally non-conforming, since it's an R2 designation. It would be consistent with our Heart of Fletcher overlay district, which talked about in that area having this CBD, the Commercial Business District, as NBD, Neighborhood Business District, as a type of zoning use that allows mixed uses within a short walking distance to a neighborhood, and that's kind of the gist of it. A good example was our first NBD conditional district, the former Charlie's on the Creek convenience store. That was a similar type of thing, of a commercial use in amongst a bunch of residential uses. That kind of made sense as something that would help the neighborhood in a good location there, so.
Sure.
Planning board was unanimous when planning board considered this in November, so their recommendation was unanimous, recommending it. It's a application from an attorney that's representing all the property owners. So that's basically the gist of it. Bob Ost, who's the attorney representing them, he will be here at the regular meeting to provide a report or presentation briefly on this, and Eric will give some comments as well.
There's no development proposed, but there's an
No.
attorney involved?
Yeah, apparently, they were interested in the NBD designation to give more flexibility, but as it stands right now, there is no specific development proposed.
Any other questions or
And that's
comments?
and that's a good question, because I would have thought that would come up. So,
Trying to get
yeah.
ahead of the game, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and there probably will be at some point, but right now, there's not.
Taking steps now, turn around and sell it after.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on that item? All righty, seeing none, moving on to item number 5. Next, we'll have another public hearing to consider the amendment to the land development code regarding building allowances in the M1 district. Mr. Manager, you have everything for that ahead of time? I know we also
Yeah,
heard
and-
about that last month.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So Eric Rufa did provide some background on this last month, and basically what this is, or what happened here was that the Partnership for Economic Development that brings industrial projects, they had a client that was looking at like 100-foot need, which is a little unusual. They normally aren't that tall or that much space that they need in a building for an industrial, a manufacturing use. So they were checking on ours, and ours right now allows 3 stories. I think it's 42 feet. And the county, so in the unincorporated parts of Henderson County, they allow 72 feet. So that's getting into like 5 stories. Planning board felt that the protected view shed and not go too high. They recommended to go to 4 stories, which would be at 56 feet. It's roughly 14 foot a story. So the recommendations to go to our current 3-story to a 4-story limit to 56 feet. And Eric bounced it off the Partnership for Economic Development, and they thought that would be fine, because most of their projects usually aren't anything taller than that, but their need, requirements for equipment in a building. But I guess they weren't quite comfortable going as high as the counties at 72 feet.
Any questions or comments here? Already seeing none, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, yeah, and it was unanimous by planning board. And they had some good input on it to come back with that kind of in-between recommendation instead of going to 5 to the 4 stories.
Okay. Sounds good. All righty, moving on to item number 6, the update on the town center project. Mr. Manager.
Okay, thank you. So last week, you heard from Windsor Autry, and then you also heard from the Carlin Company, Brad Goodson with the Carlin Company. The third entity I mentioned to you is Mark Morris with NAI Beverly Hanks. I've reached back out. I have not heard back because I wanted to give them an opportunity. My guess is they're just not far enough along. He had a couple different national interests, parties that he was trying to facilitate something. So, you had an opportunity to hear from both of them, and I know Jim was not here. Well, you were in the audience, so I guess you did hear from them, but I don't know if there's more questions or more information you'd like to get from them. I mean, one option is we could go, with whichever party, if you wanted to go to some type of formal engagement with them, we could do a letter of intent or some type of engagement letter. And it doesn't say, you're married to them, but it does give them some exclusive, not necessarily bargaining rights, but exclusive,
Window of opportunity.
Yeah,
or
that we're working with them to do due diligence on the project. It's not like a full-blown contract like we had before with Lewis Real Estate Group and the Waddells. But it gives them some window, and I wouldn't recommend you go any more than the 120 to 180 days. That's like 4 to 6 months.
Would we still run into the same problem, the reasons why like DOT? I mean, are we putting the cart before the horse? Should we fix the DOT issue, or are we going to hit the wall again? That's a concern.
No, that's a good question. I would suggest that if let's just say you decided you want me to work on an agreement or, like a letter of intent or something with one of these two, that we talk to DOT and the town could be a part of those discussions, because we've suggested that to any party, knowing everything we went through, that that be part of the work on the front end. So let's say they get a month or two into it, and they've got an idea of how something might be laid out, what might be the impacts as far as trips and access, that we talk to DOT at that point, rather than getting to a contract like we had, a full developer agreement, and not knowing anything. It'll probably still take that much time if they have to do a traffic impact analysis. If it doesn't generate enough trips for a TIA, then it would probably be a shorter review process with DOT for the driveway permit. So, but yeah, I think we should be working with them and DOT and get this it's something Eric had mentioned quite a bit, that as much as we can get this in front of DOT more on the front end, for whatever guidance we can get. We may not get the official, oh yeah, that'll work, and don't worry about the driveway permit, but at least maybe we can get away from some of the roadblocks to know it's not going to necessarily kill the deal.
Go ahead.
Well, it was a no left turn issue with the last group, correct?
Yeah. What was that about? So, based on the, and you see when it's like
Right.
late in
Oh,
the
yes.
afternoon, how it sometimes can stack quite a bit back in there. They were not comfortable with allowing any left turn movement into it. Probably during those peak times, it's kind of a moot point, because
Right.
a lot of people probably wouldn't even try to go in there. But they said because of the issue there with stacking and so forth, that there could be no left turn movement. And the way that was designed, there was one entrance in the middle that was from 25, and then there was a street on the rear of the property that would run along the railroad tracks, and you'd be able to access it from, the back road. But you couldn't go left in, and then leaving from that middle, that one, it's kind of like where Depot used to be.
Going back left
Yeah.
to south.
Yeah, you couldn't go, so it would be right in and right out. And they were gonna build, and same thing with part of the road in the back, the one that intersects with Howard Gap, they wanted that right in and right out, because they were afraid of stacking issues there, malfunctions. Which most of the day, not an issue, but it's, that, I call it rush hour time, peak time. So that's what that was about.
Okay.
And they had, the Waddell's was particularly looking at the triangle stops. They looked at two of their stores and how much was left turn movement. It was like 30% of their traffic, and they thought, it was too much.
Wasn't gonna work.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, or too much loss. And of course, our draw, at least staff, and I think from council too, as much as we can avoid a convenience store, maybe there might be some element of whatever gets done there, but it's not quite the types of mixed use we were wanting to see. We wanted to see more restaurant, retail shops, that kind of thing.
Yeah, more gathering places.
Yes, yeah.
I'll be honest with you, this is me speaking, the Windsor and also the Carlin, I didn't really like both of them, to be honest with you. Windsor for me is, they was wanting to just build something big and get money and leave. They didn't have the vision like you're talking about, the gathering spots and everything. They didn't really, to me, it didn't feel like they had that vision. They were like, we just need someone to lock in, didn't care who's going to get in the corner, if it's going to be a bank or another urgent care, that we have millions of them around here. And the Carlin Company, I guess, they have the vision, but the bad thing is, we're the cash cow. Is we provide the land and also all the infrastructure, pay for them to build and everything else. And I guess we'll be the tenant, but we'll be doing all the,
Well,
the
not necessarily. They could be buying it too, and us not leasing it to them.
So I couldn't get that out of
That's
them.
what you negotiate.
Because that day was talking to me,
He was
just
struggling.
very, very vague and stuff. But
Yeah.
it was, to me, felt like we was, and if you read your stuff, like, we pretty much will do the land and also all the infrastructure, and that's a chunk of money right there alone. And I don't know if we're doing the buildings. He just couldn't ever answer all the questions right
Yeah.
there. He has the visions, but the visions will be on the back of the town paying for everything. Or
I
90%.
don't think he's anticipating the town doing all the infrastructure on there.
I thought it was on his
But,
thing right there.
Yeah, I like the small town vision, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I actually kind of like the Carlin Group's, Carlin Company's proposal. My only concern was when he presented, and just kind of the vibe I get from the company, I just don't know if they have the capacity to do it, because they don't have that experience.
Yeah.
And then my other concern was what the public-private partnership actually entails. I guess kind of along the lines of what Trevor's talking about, but I got the impression that it was something that was up for negotiation, which is not out of the ordinary, right?
No. There'd be a big time negotiation.
course.
I mean, if this thing gets teeth, let's just say for sake of argument, with whichever party, there's gonna be a lot of hard negotiation, getting to, a full-blown agreement like we had before. I mean, there was a lot of back and forth on that.
But, I really just don't think he did a really great job presenting, unfortunately, but I got the gist of what he was trying to say and trying to convey, and I did like it.
The renderings are like,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
feel of the small town.
Yes.
Right.
Kind of taking it back to what Fletcher used to look like
Yes.
years ago, while maintaining a more current
Yeah.
code construction format versus, but I'm like y'all, I think there was a lot of
I think he was having a difficult time
what ifs
conveying
there that-
what,
Yeah,
and it is kind of open-ended, but Kathy's recommendation meant a
Absolutely.
lot to me. And then when he mentioned he had done Sierra Nevada, that perked my ears up, because I thought,
That's
okay,
right.
what have you done? So we have something to compare. And so
Yeah.
there are several things that they have done that we're just not aware of.
right.
Yeah,
So
They definitely
it
have the
might
vision.
be well worth our time to.
Yeah, Ben
I would
had no
agree.
idea
Yeah.
that Brad Goodson with the Carlin Company was even on there, but I was a little surprised, not surprised that he would say it, but just that he had something like that strong to say. Eric and I didn't quite feel that maybe he put his best, and I'm not trying to make, I know pros and cons here. He doesn't, he's a smaller group, doesn't quite have the capacity like a Windsor Autry, a track record putting mixed-use projects together, and didn't quite articulate as well how this would come together. I will say this, in our meetings with him, behind the scenes, or just, staff meeting with someone coming, we do feel he's got a strong vision, a strong idea for the vision of, I think, what the town wants to see in there. He also has good contacts in the local community here. I mean, like, he knows Martin Lewis Real Estate Group. He knows, I think, a lot of the players. There might be the potential that he could put a partnership together with some other people who have maybe a little more know-how of the nuts and bolts of putting the deal and getting leases with the right types of businesses in there. So I'm not saying just try and make some big plug, but I don't know, that helped that Ben said that Ben Cathy from McGill. I was, and Eric and I have always hoped that it would be someone in this area doing the project and not getting someone from out of town, because they're just not as vested. And,
I agree.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Sheila. I did have the concern about the capacity, but given that he's worked on projects such as Sierra Nevada, I mean, that does give me a lot more confidence.
Maybe can we have like another meeting with them? Maybe he can get it always done. Because it says basically to contribute land, contribute to the infrastructure, tax incentives, and permit fees, incentives, et cetera. I don't know what that means, but that's what the town's responsibility is what he gave us. But I'd love to go more in depth, because their stuff right here, if you look at their responsibilities, it's not a whole lot. It's like, we will meet with y'all, develop a detailed plan, and it's just, it don't have anything in concrete saying we will do this X, Y, Z on this project, if that makes sense. Out of both of them, I'll be honest with you, that would have had, I agree with everybody here, that had the small town feel that we want, but to get that small town feel, like, it looks like we'll be paying more out of our pocket to get that versus going to somebody else like Windsor Built, which Windsor Built is going to, again, build something big that we don't want and then probably leave, make money and go. Hate to say that, but.
Yeah. I mean, I get the gist. I mean, my recommendation as manager on this is if you enter into an agreement with someone you're comfortable to do this, that it would be a sale of the property, you know, with a lot of teeth in an agreement. Nothing's foolproof. Something can always go sideways on this, but I think the cleanest thing is a sale of the property. And sometimes they like it better because then they've got, you know, better control rather than just a lease arrangement. And then they've got, well, they can have more responsibility on the development cost side. I really do think whoever it is that we hopefully one day soon get into a you know, good, meaningful agreement that, they have capacity to do it, obviously, but I do think there's going to need to be more public investment in this to make the numbers work.
Yeah.
Some type of, you know, this isn't a regular, just someone coming in and doing a mixed-use project on some property they bought. It's the town wanting some things that might not organically happen in the free market here. So us making some more that can be part of the cost for the infrastructure, some incentives on it. That helps get their numbers down so they can make it work and attract some of these things that might not just happen on its own. So, but I mean, we could have a second meeting and see what, you know, these additional questions or concerns that you've got and have him come and present.
Personally, I'm even still good to keep entertaining other ideas, other folks. Like when Bob was here, I agree with him 100% when he says, we're not in a position to really have to force this something. We want to make sure, you've got one time to do it right, let's do it right the first time.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I don't want to come up 2 years down the road and say, wow, I wished we had,
yeah.
Yeah.
done
wished
this.
we had.
Right.
Why do we rush into that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the one thing, the one option, and I can invite Brad Goodson back and, you know, have him prepared a little bit more to talk about, you know, what he perceives the relationship would be, you know, is this a sale of the property or lease, and what level of contributions. A lot of these details we don't know until we know what he can bring and what he thinks the town would need to contribute to, you know, get that.
The define like
level. Or we go out for an RFP. I know I mentioned this before. You know, it's a little risky, or you could get a bunch. We only had one really good one before. Or, you know, we just continue general engagement discussions with groups, but I think it's a good idea if maybe we want to invite Brad back.
At least
for
maybe
more of a discussion on this and try and flush out.
Talk to them about what's the fine contributions of land costs, contributions of infrastructure. That's awful broad. Is it like we pay 90%, he does 10, he does 50/50, or us do 10, he does 90? He's very broad in that day. We trying to talk to him about that. He says he's open, you know, he didn't really lay out a good plan, if that makes sense.
Would he be in a position to be able to answer those questions at this point, Mark?
I'll ask him and be prepared to
Yeah.
come and talk, and if not, then he's not. And,
Yeah,
I'll talk to you about it, and we
And
take
yeah,
next steps.
It sounds like the main concern is what the public-private partnership
Yeah.
entails from council, which I think is probably my concern too. But I think Mark's right. I mean, the fact of the matter is, this is going to be a public-private partnership. We're going to have to give something somewhere. We just need clarity about what that is, I guess.
And
I'm conveying council's
Or a more
sentiment
definite
correct.
Thought process
Yeah.
of what that looks like.
And then also with the amount, how much cost it's going to, you get into it and say, well, you're providing 90% of all of it, you know, that's going to.
Yeah. And I'm not going to speak for him, because maybe he does expect there's going to be more than what you're comfortable with, but I don't think he's looking at it that way. But we need to ask. And just again, and I know you all knew we put money in, but, you know, the town was putting $150,000 of the cost for the road in doing the demo. We did the demo. I don't think that's too big of a, if you want to feel like it's a loss, because we could have done the demo pre-clearance anyways before we entered into an agreement with a party. So, anyways, and there's a lot of ways you can crack this, crack the nut here, so to speak, as far as other infrastructure contributions.
Yeah, I kind of get the sense from him that he just wasn't well prepared, to be honest, and maybe he didn't answer the questions that I think council had because of that. So maybe we can have some questions sent to him ahead of time.
Yeah.
So that he's
Yes.
prepared to answer them.
Yeah, I tried to brief both of them to come in and explain what's your vision for this, as you think it fits
Right.
with the town, your prior capacity, and maybe he didn't get into enough of that
Sure.
to do this, and, any way you can explain what it is you want from the town as far as next steps. Of course, he had that a little bit with the engagement letter.
Sure.
But, so, okay.
Well, is it appropriate if maybe any council member has specific questions? Can
Yeah,
we send them to
yeah.
you?
Yeah,
To you,
please.
and
Please.
maybe he, convey those questions to
Yeah, if
the gentleman, I'm
you-
forgetting his name, but
Yeah, Brad Goodson.
Brad, yeah.
Yeah, but just email me any questions, concerns you've got, and then I'll put something together. Eric and I'll probably talk to him. And
Okay.
so these are some issues that council's interested in, maybe some possible more engagement on this, but we're not quite ready to go to a letter of intent or formal engagement, but we want to get some answers on some of these things.
Sure.
So would it also be his responsibility to tell us what type or what companies he's maybe talking to that might be interested in putting up there? I mean, where does that come from?
I don't think he's far enough
Oh, I know you-
along there, but we can ask that if he has.
It almost sounded like to me when he's talking, it's like, Jens find the tenant. We'll build the building, you find the tenant. I was like,
That's
That's the
kind
take I got from it.
That's
So I
what-
would rather
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, okay, we do most of the work and pay for it, so it's like, that's,
Well, and maybe that can be a part of the discussions when we get into the public-private partnership. There's gonna be a
Well,
negotiation.
roles here are going to be
Yeah.
important. If our role is simply, here's the terms of the agreement for sale of the property, any other public contribution, and these are the parameters we want to see, and your role is to go and find tenants for that and receive this level of contribution to, make it profitable for you to do this and build something that we like, then, that's a little more clear.
Because that was kind of what Windsor Orchard was talking about doing. They went ahead and having these buildings pre-sold, pre-fixed, or who got what before they even started it.
Yeah.
When his idea was to build the building and then fill it before, of course, it's the takeout to it.
Yeah, and,
I like the idea of selling it ahead of time.
yeah. That makes, I would guess from a business standpoint, that would be, feel much more secure rather than floating an empty building
Yeah.
until you know it's going to go in there, or a shell
You don't know
building.
kind of a building to build.
Yeah,
And if you don't have an occupant, you may not even know what the very specifics of the infrastructure of that
yeah,
building need to
yeah,
be.
yeah. So,
Okay.
So maybe, if there are specific questions, get those questions to Mark, and
I mean, and
convey those to-
I've jotted some
Oh,
things
sure.
down here,
Thank
so
you.
I'll put some stuff together, but yeah, please, if you have some other specific questions, concerns, you can send them to me, and then I'll get with him.
Do you have anything else on that item, council? Okay. Mark, do you need anything else from us at this point on that item?
I don't think so. I think I know what I need to do here.
Okay. All righty, moving on to item number 7. Consideration of amendments to Chapter 110 on the Code of Ordinances covering businesses license. Mr. Manager?
Okay, thanks. So this came about, we were looking in our code, and is dealing with basically registration of businesses. So to back up a little bit, years ago, the state had this, local governments had authority to issue something called business privilege license tax. And the General Assembly, I'm sorry, it's been probably 7 years ago, we just really haven't needed to deal with it in our code. It's kind of a housekeeping thing, really. They did away with business privilege license tax. They thought it was an unreasonable, local government burden on businesses, and some of it was a pretty high tax. I mean, if you did their gross volume of sales, and they did this like on the Walmarts and that, where you really could bring a lot of tax revenue in. We didn't do that. We had, I guess it was based on some different types of businesses, a higher or lower business privilege license tax. So we didn't bring a ton of revenue in it, but the state, the General Assembly did not like this taxing authority. So they did away with it, stripped, local government authority for a revenue source on it, and basically left us with, well, you can do a business registration fee, which basically is just to help us account for business activity in the town, businesses that are here. Could help with zoning enforcement, things like that. But really, it's just an accounting of, that we know what businesses are operating here that we may not just know about. And you can only charge a reasonable, they call reasonable fee, $25. So what we did is went back through, Christine worked on this, and Susan Hefner in our office, and myself doing some editing here, and basically went and struck, and we added a little bit of language in there to clarify the business registration aspect of it, but basically removed all the references to business privilege license, and then some of these specific categories for businesses, just doing business privilege licenses. So that's chapter 110, and I don't know if there's any questions about it. It was a lot of strike through, and you've got a copy of the code with strike through and language added to it. But that's essentially 110 and these edits. I can move this to consent if you want, so we don't have to go through this again.
We all okay with that, going to
Yes.
consent? Sure. Thank you.
So it's fairly cut and dry. There wasn't a lot.
It looks like a lot, but actually, it's like you said, it's a housekeeping thing.
Yeah.
Like you've bled all over these papers as a student, I'd be upset.
It needs to be done anyway, so we can get that, and then I'll send it off to codification, so. it can
Yeah.
be done.
Well, thank you for working on that, Christine, and to
I
Susan.
just
Yeah.
started it, and not knowing enough about the licensing and whatever, Susan took over, because I don't deal with that, so I don't know a lot about it.
So
We send our thanks to her, too.
Yeah, sure.
So it's
Yeah,
still
they
gonna
did a
have the
lot of work.
$25 fee though? That's
Yes,
not
sir,
gonna
yes,
change.
yeah, the $25.
Somewhat,
I
yeah.
know it doesn't sound like much, but this is like this reasonable fee, so we haven't messed with it, and of course, businesses like it.
I think it sounds fun.
Yeah, I think Trevor had a
Yeah,
question.
kind of go with the springboard off of Keith's. That's $25 for, don't matter what big size business you have, small, large, that's an annual 25 each year. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
It's done every fiscal year.
Yeah, so Susan Safner in our office sends out letters every year to all the businesses, and, has to chase down some of them who don't pay it. But, yeah, that's essentially it. And, at least it's a tool we can keep track of what businesses are operating here. And it's good to know that. So that's 110. So, yeah, we can move that to, we'll move that to consent. And then the next one is somewhat similar to it, a little bit different because we've got some different type of business activity that's articulated in there. So if you're okay, we move to the next item, Mayor.
Yeah.
So item 8 is dealing with Chapter 111. And Chapter 111 of our code deals with itinerant merchants, salespersons, peddlers, solicitors, and pawnbrokers. So we do a permit for some of this activity, particularly solicitors. So solicitors are like people going door to door selling, which is much less common now. I mean, think about it now compared to 20 years ago or more. You used to see more people going in neighborhoods trying to sell stuff. And you still got people, just your unregulated, jackleg type of thing where they go up and try and sell you out, resurface your driveway and you don't know. if they're
What's the cost
legit.
of the permit to do soliciting here in town?
It's really small.
I think it's $5.
Is it $5? Okay, so
Can
it's
it be
$5.
raised?
If I remember correctly, I think it's like $5.
Yeah, and that one is, like, again, we don't issue it very often, and it's for a very small period of time where they may be canvassing a neighborhood.
Because the issue, I'm sorry, go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, I say there's an issue. To me, I think there is an issue. I'll do South Chase. There's that solar company.
Panels, that's what I was about to
They
bring up,
beat
too.
down these people's doors and they hate it.
Every week.
I've heard a lot
So,
of
yes,
panels.
the solar panel company, this,
On behalf of Duke, so they say, and they're trying to get everybody to convert over, and it's just.
and we
They're probably haven't
That's what I was
got
about to bring up,
permits.
too.
They probably don't.
Yeah, they're probably
And everybody has to
don't-
go through a background check too,
Yeah,
before they're issued
yeah.
a permit.
so they probably don't get the permit, I'm guessing.
Well, exactly.
My guess is they're unpermitted people going
They
on.
figure out who the company is and
And if they're
stop
at your
them.
door, ask to see their permit.
Yeah,
Well, I don't- yeah,
yeah,
but-
they're supposed to have it. Well, as much as anyone can report that, then maybe we can get, for police, see that out in the field, they can stop them and talk to them about it. But we don't get well, I guess some of it's going on in South Chase.
There's
Livingston Farms, too.
And we figured that out when we did the campaigning. 'cause
Yep, I heard
You
about
knock on
it.
the door, they think you're so.
Solar panels.
Ooh, boy, you get,
Yeah.
you'll get an earful.
We're here for solar
Yeah,
panels.
some people don't even answer the door no
I'm the
more.
same way there with you, what you're bringing up.
So if there's any way we can, I guess, make it harder, I hate to say this, make it harder, make it harder for solicitors to go into the developments like
Well,
that and banging on doors, they should.
Yeah, well, it is a little bit onerous for them to get these things, and we do kind of make it hard for them because they have to, so my guess is these are unpermitted people.
That's what it sounds
going in. They have to fill out the form, the police department has to check it out because we're allowed to do a background check. So, if they have people with criminal background records going in there, then it gets a little bit more concerning that, they could be committing
And
crimes.
that's not on
and-
the company, that's per person walking through.
It's per person, yeah.
So
They
what-
they check it, and it's per day.
What if somebody gets caught, like, okay, they do it, so we're just gonna, I'm not gonna pay the $5, what it is, but I'll just take a chance. If they get caught, what's the fee or what's the penalty? Is there any
I
teeth?
think they just are told not to do it, and I don't believe we have a fine
Yeah.
against them for doing it without unpermitted activity. And I can dig in here and see.
I'm just kinda curious.
Yeah.
Especially for the solar company. If it's somebody like a Girl Scouts walking door to door to sell cookies,
Yeah,
no, don't worry about that.
It says what it says, if the violation is still not corrected within the prescribed time period, then a citation in the amount of 50
Okay, so yeah,
shall
we
be
can,
issued per violation.
So basically, the
We can
PD
sign
can go up there, try to catch the people that says you gotta have your permit or get $50 fine or leave.
yeah.
Is there a way that we could put it in the newsletter that they should report it when it happens?
Sure.
Or
Yeah.
on Facebook?
Yeah.
I'm sure people probably just don't know, yeah.
I don't.
I know there's exceptions in here too, I'm trying to find that, I gotta look for that Girl Scout cookie stuff.
I think it was nonprofits.
Okay.
things
Yeah,
of that nature that
nonprofits
were
didn't
exempt.
have to, that's right.
But the newsletter would be a good idea.
Yeah, the itinerant merchants, these are like this temporary business activity, moving product around. But really, the biggest thing this deals with is solicitors. And we don't get a lot of permit requests, just because it's not a very effective sales practice to go anymore, to go door to door. A lot of times people don't answer their door if they don't know who it is. So, yeah,
They do, they're not happy.
All right.
There's a secured bond that's required to be held, and I bet many do not have that.
That's just for the pawnbroker right there.
yeah, the,
That's, I think it is.
yeah, the pawnbroker
It's for the what?
activity, yes.
The pawn
Oh,
broker.
okay, gotcha.
And we don't have any pawnbrokers in town
Oh, I
right
just
now.
saw that, sorry.
So,
Well, do we have any other, or, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
again, basically, this is trying to address the business privilege license. We did do a little housekeeping things. Some of the permits said like, just for, it was good for like a long, some of them a longer period of time, like 6 months and we took that out. And so when the permit's issued, it's issued just for that period of time. They say they're gonna be doing this work. Yeah, because some of them just appeared too long in nature. So we suggested that be struck.
Do we have any other questions or comments on that item?
Pass it on, Susan did very well on this.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
So, yes, did great.
We'll do,
Are we
yeah,
okay with this one going to consent agenda?
Yes.
yeah.
All righty, moving on to your comments, Mr. Manager.
Okay. Just making a note here. Move to consent. Several things on the list here. Just again, a reminder, I know we have it in the front of the agenda review agenda here, but next week at 4 to be here. And again, I'll have department heads, I'll have some comments at the end, and Heather, but it's just kind of, this is a much briefer type of work session, but it's kind of a kickoff where they can explain to you just activities during the year that were funded. Might be just, more like capital items, but if there's anything different service-wise is kind of where we're at with things that have been funded in the current fiscal year. And then any big picture items for this upcoming budget we're working on. And that can be like a major equipment purchase, capital item, or additional staff requests, things like that, to kind of give you all a heads up, hey, this is something I'm looking at requesting. And then, and there's a lot of work in the background with me and staff on this before something's just dumped on you and saying, will you please fund this, and this is why. So we try and vet a lot of that behind the scenes. So that's at 4, and it'll be something brief from the department heads, and please ask questions. And then we'll break, and Christine will have sandwiches brought in, and then we'll reconvene at 6 for the regular meeting. So just a reminder on that. And then another item, so I know I've had a lot of discussion with you all about Conserving Carolina, that does a lot of land conservation projects. They've been working with us to try and identify grants for extension of our Greenway trail, particularly the Cane Creek Greenway going towards the Meritor property. And Rebecca Robinson's been our key point of contact there that works on grants. And she has identified one, something called Connecting Communities to State Trails. And she's trying to get some final information on the grant guidelines, but this Connecting Communities State Trails is basically money for building greenway trails. It's not a big grant pot. We're a little more interested in going after bigger ones into the $1 million plus range, but it's $250,000. It has to be matched, so it can be up to a $500,000 award. And so Eric and I sat down with her and then got Ben Cathy from McGill Associates, some of the McGill folks involved, and they did a preliminary analysis of could a trail be built and how much of it from basically from Highway 25 there, in the creek, going west along King Creek. And you got a copy of a cost estimate and a little map that was a separate item on there. And so McGill had worked on that, and they actually were able to come up with a budget for, I don't have how many linear feet this is for the extension, but it builds a decent little segment of the trail, a paved trail, and it would be something with a 10-foot width asphalt. So starting at Highway 25 there, building a little sidewalk off the road leading down to the trail, and then building the asphalt greenway trail, basically kind of hugging parallel to the creek for as long as they can get that segment built. And then the idea would be is other grant funding to continue that on and possibly get to the bridge crossing over. If we build the segment from the park across the Fernleaf property, we got to get over the creek there, and we're either going underneath the bridge and coming around onto the sidewalk and down to like the sidewalk that would be built here, or we're going under and then coming over on a bridge, which, you know, the bridge is a much more costly option, probably a better one, so we're not bringing people up onto 25 and around. But, so that's, I just wanted y'all, give y'all a heads up, something we're working on, and hopefully we'd be able to submit it. There would be, again, a local match requirement. We're in, you know, very good shape as far as our reserves to consider funding this if it's something that has a good shot. And we would, I would have Ben, someone from the Gill Associates back to explain more kind of how far this can be built, so we have a better idea what kind of landmark out there. So I just want to give you a heads up, this is something that we're looking at, and if we get closer to submitting, I'll be, you know, bringing that back to make sure we've got your blessing on that. You know, you don't have to, unless the grant requirement says it, you typically, there might be an endorsement, but you don't have to appropriate the monies until you get awarded. That's typically how it works, so.
And I don't know about y'all, but I know from your standpoint, my standpoint of what we do, I'd love for the fire department and the police department to look at this too.
Okay.
Just to make sure accessibility in the event something happens way out here at the very end.
Yeah.
Do they have the means to access that in the event somebody has to be rescued or somebody falls or there's a cardiac arrest or anything out there? Do they have the equipment, everything that they need to get out to it and back?
Got it. Okay.
I have two things real quick. Well, number one, the matching, I do agree that'd be nice to get a larger grant, because I know we spend $250,000, and since it's at 25 onto the Meritor property, I don't want the people coming back, the citizens saying that we just built a $250,000 to a trail to nowhere. It don't connect to nothing. It's just sitting out there doing nothing. That's a concern right there. And another thing, we was talking to, I can't remember when it was, a few days ago. It says asphalt. We had an elderly person we was talking to. She walks to park here all the time, and we mentioned trails and stuff like that and asphalt. She says, "Oh no, the asphalt you don't." Because it's hard on joints on the elderly people. I don't know if have you ever polled anybody? Asked if they'd rather have asphalt, because a couple different things. It says asphalt's hard on people's joints and stuff like that. And another concern is people start riding their bicycles as they're walking. People be flying down there because now they got a paved road. So that was a concern that was brought up, and I thought, well, I'll bring it back to council. And I never really thought about that. I didn't know. I guess, I don't know what the difference is on asphalt versus rock.
I don't know if there's, well, okay, there's kind of three things. There's asphalt, there's doing a soft trail, which is stone, which they're nice and they're not as hard on the joints. The soft, the pebble stone, but The maintenance is.
The long run of maintenance is gonna cost you.
Long range
washes out.
does not make
That's the river.
sense. And it, yeah, it does not make sense. Trust me, it has been tough to keep up with our soft ones and trying to constantly put
I
stone
understand.
on
I just don't want it out
people. So that's definitely less. Now, if you go between asphalt and cement, I don't know which is easier. They
Still
might be
hard
similar.
surface, you know.
But so that's why the asphalt, it's cheaper than going cement and it lasts a lot longer. On the bike, yeah, I mean, we could post rules about, seating, watching out for people coming by on their
Walking.
bikes. It's kind of a protocol when you're walking. Cyclists should come up when they're behind you and say on your left or something. I mean, that's kind of the way it works on greenway trails,
Right.
but, yeah,
But the first concern, you had the 250,000 that were
yeah.
putting out for a trail note to nowhere.
Yeah,
It's just an open road, open field, a little pavement out there, people, I don't want people like the citizen saying, boy, it's a waste of money. you know?
I do think there's a good chance, because there's a lot of interest and there's been a lot of state support for greenway development, that we'll be able to find other sources to build it out all the way to, excuse me, the interstate, or going under the interstate and getting it, ultimately to the French Broad, which is kind of our goal, to get it into the regional one.
Is the interstate in Fletcher City? Or town of
I
Fletcher?
think we end at the interstate, and then
I mean, is the town limits, does it stop at the interstate, or,
Yes.
to me, we shouldn't go beyond the interstate, that's again, citizens.
yeah, I mean,
Money's
we may
going-
only fund up to that because that's our town limits.
Yeah.
But if you remember, we were trying to get this designed, or at least preliminary design, and this improves our chances with federal funding in that, when you talk about not the path to nowhere or the turnaround, if we can design it, and whether we pay for it or not, and I understand it's much less palatable to be paying for a trail that goes outside the town limits, but that improves our chances for federal funding, and also makes more sense to get it into a regional trail network, even though that other part is not built yet, the Hellbender Trail through there. I mean, our current trail, the Greenway trails, if you want to be technical, is a trail to nowhere. I mean, it ends at the railroad
Railroad tracks,
tracks.
spins around.
And then you got to turn around and come
But it's not
back.
connected to, when I say trail nowhere, it's not connected to the original. I can't park in the park right here and turn around and walk that trail. I have to actually find a way and walk down 25 to
Yeah,
get
I
home.
know.
There's, nobody
Yeah.
can use, probably the South Chase people probably can use it, walk
Yeah.
down Chastity, but that's
Yeah.
it. But no, people are driving down the road, they're gonna look out to the
Right.
thing and said, you spent, well, they're gonna look at the $500,000.
Or if there was a parking lot, I don't know if we'd be able to buy some property there or whatever, but when you come off this sidewalk that would lead down to it, there's kind of an area right there, if you were to pull your car down in there, that, yeah, it could be a small parking area, and that could be, maybe that's part of the project. Because, I understand your point, how do you get to there? Like, you can go to the park and get on our trail and go down to the end. And we also have that little loop trail that we built, going down to the railroad trestle, you come back a little bit. If you want to do something different, you can go on the loop trail and come back to the paved part. So.
It goes along the creek and not along the property line? Is that what you're saying? The proposed trail will go
Yeah.
along the creek?
Yes, yes.
And
It
of
probably has to
course,
be paved then.
I haven't been in any of the,
Yeah.
where we had the really bad washed out area during
Uh-huh.
the last big flood right
Right.
along that creek bank.
Yeah.
I'm sure McGill has looked at some way to reinforce that, or
Well,
I know it's
we're trying to
water.
build it back so it's not too close to it, because
Okay.
you're gonna have constant erosion on the stream bank. One thing we have looked at, so in the main portion of the park where it runs, along parallel to Cane Creek, is looking at like a bigger picture, grant source to try and stabilize the stream bank there. I mean, it's really tough to be able to do it for a long, long stretch to try and stay, I mean, it's just very costly
Water
thing
goes where
too.
it wants to go.
Yeah, I mean, a healthy stream meanders a little bit. You get deposits that go from one end and you know, it moves like that. Ours hasn't been quite as natural as King Creek for lots of reasons. Probably just because of all the activity near it that's had an impact, flooding.
I don't know how far the property is.
So,
It's way
yeah, but that's a good question. Yeah, we're trying to keep it
And then
a
I'm
good
thinking,
enough
well,
buffer
that
that
would be
doesn't become an issue where the bank's eroding,
all of the.
kind of like
all
what
of
we
the
dealt with in the main
That's the one.
storage
I know that was a big
park.
surprise.
I just don't want people fussing.
like
Yes.
I just don't want people fussing when they drive by and it look like we put
Yeah,
$500,000.
and you know, we've stabilized
Just
a bunch of them.
the
Yeah, we
field
had
for
some
nothing.
projects to
And all,
do
you
that.
hear also said it's
So-
just a trail just for South Chase.
But, I mean, we haven't
They won't
submitted the
realize grant,
application.
only thing they'll be
It's
looking at is
just,
that bottom line right there.
I want you all to be aware of
Regroup.
when we're looking at, yeah.
Now, if it's all connected,
if we
going all
get
the way to
ready
here,
do that.
okay.
The only thing I'll say is I think it takes time, these greenways,
Yeah,
and I think there is immense benefit to connecting it to a regional trail network, even though I definitely see it kind of feels like it's going to nowhere right now, but in time, if we're able to connect it to that regional trail network, if I look at things like the Acoustic Trail, I mean, Hendersonville and Brevard and Transylvania, Henderson County, I mean, there's immense excitement and immense economic development surrounding those trails, and it seems to be an incredible benefit to Hendersonville and Brevard, and it seems like we're headed in that same direction, but again, I think it's worthwhile for us just to be really patient with this and wait to see how it goes.
Yeah, we
But
need-
I hear the parking lot thing too. I don't think you're wrong there, that there should be some kind of parking or some kind of access there.
the nice thing, we don't deal with a lot of, to do this trail, there's not a lot of impact on adjoining property owners, it's, you know, like residences, you know, residential properties and that, like disturbing their view shed or cutting too close to the edge of their property, or, you know, some of those things that,
Not intimate domain or like that either, right?
pardon me?
No intimate domains.
No.
Okay, because I know like
I-
the mayors talk about the acoustic
Yeah.
trails, they intimate domain like 800 something acres, so not everybody's excited about this
Yeah,
thing.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I don't think you're gonna need to do anything like that on this. I mean, we're gonna try and work voluntarily with, there's really, Charlie Owen, and, you know, years ago, he expressed support for us to, I don't know if we have to just get an easement or if there's gonna be some payment to do it. He made it sound like he would grant access without it. I don't know that for absolutely sure, but he's supportive. He's the biggest private property owner we have to deal with. And he's very community-minded, community-oriented, so, I mean, he helped
Good.
with the Fernley
that's gonna be the next
project.
question, have you talked to the
Yeah.
folks that live,
Yeah.
butts up against the property, what's their thoughts and everything
Well,
about it?
the only one it abuts up to is his, because it was go through, and then it's town property, it's the
Yeah.
Meritor piece. And there's possibly one other private property owner we might have to deal with to get an easement. And they've been good to work with, it's the Westfelds, you know, the Westfelds helped with property for that park the county's trying to do, you know, near, the French Broad.
Then you got the
there.
creek on the other side, so.
Yeah, and then
There's a
it's their,
barrier.
it's their big swath of property there that goes all the way back, you start at South Chase, so it's, you know, you're not dealing with that, because I know there's been some, problems with acoustic trail development being close to people's property. You know, the view is different now, and, you know, concerns of traffic, people going by on their bikes and walking, so I think it's gonna be mostly bikes you're gonna see on the acoustic trail. That's really more designed to be a bike trail. And those people, I mean, they bike through and they bike back. But-
And they did receive a significant amount of federal funding.
Oh, yeah, a lot. Yeah, it's pretty much all paid federal
Yeah.
funding. So we met with our, so I mentioned we had a meeting set up with Robin Ramsey from Senator Tom Tillis's office. So Mayor and Sheila and myself met with her, and we expressed this as one of our projects that, excuse me, we'd like to get federal funding for, to make sure that's specifically on her radar. We talked about sewer, for like that sewer project we were trying to do Westfeld, Dogwood Terrace in North Hudson. So, but this was discussed as well, to put that on the radar, hopefully help us finding, because it's getting a little tougher right now with some of those sources. But we've got to lobby our legislators too, to get that help. And we'll bring it to our state legislative delegation as well, now that we have a pretty good idea on the cost. So, well, I'll let you know when this comes back up, and hopefully, or if it doesn't work, we don't take a shot at it, but we'll see. The next thing I wanted to mention is, we kind of floated an idea, with our town center property, in particular the property back this way, the 26 and 18 acres surrounding Town Hall. I'm not talking about the piece on Highway 25, but it's always been master plan for some element of housing on there. And, do we look at maybe a project with a workforce affordable housing element, and maybe some multifamily housing on there? We talked, I know Sheila's had some specific interest, workforce housing, Mayor with workforce housing, affordable housing. Do we, approach them, and maybe there's a possibility of some small number of multifamily units as a project? And Mayor knows the HAC director fairly well, and so we're trying to this is just very preliminary. We're not.
Where are you talking about? Where the property?
Like on the north side of Town Hall here,
that area.
on the town center property.
I mean, apartment complexes, that just puts more hardship on the infrastructure. I mean,
we're looking at, and again, not pushing this hard, just very exploratory, because I know more what we're trying to look at is just kind of market-based housing on there, if there's any, and probably more single-family than multifamily stuff, apartments. But could there be an element of some mixed-use development that's targeted for workforce housing? Maybe even more specifically, and we're just asking these questions. A lot of these what-ifs may not even be possible.
personally, I don't think apartment complexes in Fletcher, I think we're premature. I wouldn't want to see no more. It kind of kicks, springboards off a thing right here, my idea right here, it just come to my brain. What happened to the development right here at the Cane Creek and Millis Gap? I mean, they asked for extension because of COVID. We gave them the extension, and they haven't done nothing.
Let me answer that, but so we were just going to meet with the executive director and just see if there's something targeted, like for, because I know they've had affordable housing things targeted, like for public safety officials, teachers.
I thought that development right there is what they kind of focused on, was a little bit more affordable housing and stuff. So that's why I said we're going to put an apartment complex here. And then if that other development goes right beside it, that's just more.
I don't think that's their target for BSC Holdings. The one you're asking about is the one along Old
Millis Gap and Cane Creek down here at the corner,
It's BSC Holdings, and they are working on that. They're getting ready to submit their stormwater site plan.
Okay, so they are working on it. Because I was thinking when he talked to us, it was they're renting the homes at affordable.
They're market-based rentals in there. These will not be, unless they've changed some model on there.
Okay, I was thinking
Maybe
it
they
was.
have a
And they had a little mix
percentage
with single-family homes, they had townhomes, I think they had
Yeah.
maybe one apartment maybe or two.
Townhomes, apartments, and it's like single-family home villas.
So that's what I was thinking in my mind, it's like, let's see what that does to the infrastructure of the road before we start talking
That
about
might be fine.
building an apartment complex next to the town hall.
We're just trying to get ideas and not pushing this hard,
Okay.
but it just, we were looking at it, and quite frankly, we were just looking out the window one day from Eric's office and kind of like, how do we kickstart some things back here that get to meet some needs in the community, but then still get our development going for the mixed-use development we want to see back there. Maybe it doesn't work.
Something
you
like,
know,
so like Brevard, or, you know, where it's got commercial on the bottom and retail. and
Exactly.
Maybe on top of, maybe residential, something like that.
Residential above, retail on the bottom, and that's actually one of the specific things we wanted to talk to
Okay.
them about. So, again, it may not get legs at all here, but just trying to look at something creatively. Maybe there's a way, maybe it doesn't fit, and it's not palatable to the community, so.
If it's a mixed
I
property,
wonder if
right?
something like that, you look at the square foot cost to build right now,
Yeah,
2 to 220 per square foot
Yeah.
to build. Is that really affordable for anybody?
yeah. Well,
Once they build
depends.
it, price
Once
point.
they build
It
it,
depends what
price
the
point.
rents are. Here's a big piece of the puzzle that Housing Assistance Corporation, hacks of the world, is land.
Yeah.
They can't find land. We've got land. I'm not saying if we put something together, they get a big part of the land. It would be a very small part of the land in this scheme of things, but it answers that piece then gets them to get other federal resources in there, other sources of money that they can layer into it to make it work.
More.
So, yeah.
And I think that's the formula that the city of Hendersonville's been using as well. I think they've had land available, and they've worked with HAT to be able to build those affordable housing units on that land. And I think we can all acknowledge that there's an affordable housing crisis issue here. So I think it's at least worthwhile to talk to them, to see what ideas they have, to see if it's even feasible, at the very least. Because there's obviously an issue with people that work for the town of Fletcher can't even afford to live in the town of Fletcher. So if we're talking about this workforce housing element that targets public service, for example, if that's possible, that would be an immense benefit just to the town.
I got a single mom daughter with
I'd
two
be willing to
kids
listen for
that can't
sure,
afford to
absolutely.
live.
Yes, I mean, we, listen to them, see if there's a way to do that. I don't even know if we can make it exclusive to public safety teachers, kind of that audience. It might not even be allowed.
But if that price point is there for them, then that opens up some doors for people.
I know there's been programs, and they may still be out there, like first-time homebuyer assistance that was targeted specifically for teachers and public safety. So maybe there's the same thing with a rental unit. I don't know.
And they're the experts. I mean, they-
Yeah, I mean, let them,
How feedback.
get into the details, and then maybe it's a no, it's a quick no, I don't know. We don't want to push this hard, because I understand some of the concerns about we have too much apartments and too much multifamily housing. It's, some general sentiment out there. And trust me, we're sensitive to that, staff is, because Eric gets lots of inquiries about, and he tries to be very candid with them, that there's not a huge appetite for that if you're looking to try and get council to rezone something for multifamily housing. I mean, we basically, we've restricted zoning now that there's very few places you can do projects unless they come back to council for a conditional district rezoning. So, and we've had a bunch of units built, before we had none. We've got Seasons at Cane Creek, that's 192 units. You've got Groves at Town Center, the one by the park, that's 168, I think. So there are some choices. There weren't many really in town before. So, but we'll meet with them and see if there's any ideas or anything that could come back. I just want to give you all heads up on it, just to let you know. I aren't running way out ahead of this to try and push a project that no one's comfortable with, but maybe there's an opportunity here.
I would prefer to see, when I think of workforce housing, I'm not necessarily always thinking about apartments. I'm not looking I would like to see something that's more permanent and not a temporary fix. I know Eric didn't like the idea at all, but I like that land off of Fanning Bridge. It's just got great road, that's split, it's got that circular area that goes in front of the quarry. And he said, well, it's not zoned for that anymore, but you've got South Chase and part of Wildwood, and so it's already a neighborhood, and he said, I just don't think people would like it if it was developed, because I was thinking of cottages or smaller homes, or even if we go back to, if we could find a developer that would do it, that would do a home that's anywhere from 900 to 12 or 1,400 square feet, something somebody could afford to have a home and have a little bit of yard, because when they get in apartments, you're in there because that's all you can afford, but then you're trying your best to scramble and figure out how to get out, because you just want a different place, a place to call your own home. And I feel like, Trevor, I really want to see what they're going to do there on the corner. I mean, if we can do some sort of little something on the front, I don't mind doing that at all. I just don't want to get near the creek, or I don't want to touch the area that, flooded so bad.
And remember, some of the audience, or the customers or tenants in apartments, they're there on a temporary basis, because it's just, they need an apartment to live in.
Yeah.
So it's part of the people coming in and out of apartments. Back to BSC Holdings, the ones doing the 300 units, I know they're working on their transportation impact analysis, the TIA, their traffic impact analysis, and they have a grading site plan that they're trying to submit for permitting. You'll probably be hearing about soon. They part along on one of the edge, and Eric and I have heard from them, but we've said, you need to give us more details, because this may not even fly. They're interested in getting some type of easement from the town going onto the town's property for some of the grading coming off of it. Basically,
mentioned that.
so they don't have to do a retaining wall, so it would be like sloped off there along the edge of some of the grading landscaping on the very edge of the project. And I'm trying to caution them, you need to explain exactly where this is. I mean, they've got it, they just emailed
It
a
sounds like a
flat.
runoff. All the runoff's gonna come onto the town property.
Well, here's the other thing. Do you want to give them an easement or sell them an easement? I don't know if their expectation is they're just asking the town to donate, but I mean, you're basically losing some of your land
Yeah,
there. That's the town-owned property. I don't know if they're wanting to buy it. We're trying to get much more specific, like how much property they need. I
You
think
can't make a decision till you know exactly what they're talking about.
right, and what do they want, and do you want to give that to them or sell it to them and lose some of your land? And right now they've articulated, well, we're wanting to do it because it would be better for the town rather than to look at a retaining wall there, which I'm a little dubious about that, because a retaining wall is more expensive for them to put in versus sloping it off and getting some land from the town on their side.
Doesn't
So
really
I'm-
matter to us. I can look at a
Well, it's
retaining
different.
wall.
So-
We're going to own those and rent those to people, so people aren't moving there and having their own piece of property. They're still
Right.
renting, whether it's an apartment or these little houses.
Yeah.
So it's benefiting them.
Right.
When's their extension up? I know they've asked for extensions and everything
Is
else.
it this summer?
It should be close.
They have, they've got to show that like infrastructure's going in place, and otherwise.
Because last time their excuse was it's COVID, and that's long gone.
Yeah, they're on the second extension here
Yeah,
on
it'd be
this.
hard for me to-
So, yeah, but you're gonna be hearing about some easement they want along there. Eric and I are meeting with them, because I'm like, you need to explain more where specifically, how much, what do you want from the town in exchange for this, or are you asking for a donation? And why didn't you just shift the development further onto your parcel and not
You've
be
had plenty
asking
of
for
time to
this?
ponder all of that.
So,
4
you know,
It's like
So-
4 years later,
so
and you're
more
just
than
now
that,
thinking you
to
need
say
an
that
easement.
to say that a
6 years.
retaining wall
Yeah.
is just benefiting, is for our benefit to do a retaining wall, like I said, I'm a little dubious about that, because I think they don't want to do, it's my general impression. So Eric and I have not sat down, we've just some emails going back and forth and some documents to look at. Retaining walls are expensive to build, and I'm thinking they're wanting this to save money, but make it look like it looks better for the town, so. I probably shouldn't get so far ahead on that, but that's something we're gonna get more details, but they ultimately would have to get approval from council to do this. And I'm just not ready to say this is a good thing or not for the town's best interest on this. It may be best for them that they do the retaining wall, I don't know. So-
Coming in as a new guy, are they doing anything else, or have they done anything else in the area?
No, well, oh yeah, they do, yeah, they have one,
25,
yeah,
Sweeten Creek.
Sweeten Creek.
Kensington,
Because it almost sounds like
Yeah.
it almost sounds like with this timeline thing, they're caught in the middle of one project.
I don't think so.
Can you get to another?
I'm not positive. I don't know that they're building anything else. This would be the third or fourth
Okay.
type project that's a similar model, where it's this development, they're all rental properties, they manage the rest of the property there, the common areas and that. And I think they're nice products. They're not, I mean, it's very market-based. This isn't inexpensive.
My concern with the
Thanks.
rental stuff like that is always, you've got a good property manager now. What
Yeah,
happens in 10 years is if they want to move on and sell that to a different company,
yeah.
is that company going to have the same ethical, moral
Right,
values as
yeah.
that company to keep things up?
Yeah. I get the impression that they have a fairly high standard on it, and, I mean, they said our residents love it, but, I mean, I don't got this
Okay,
firsthand.
no, I was just curious.
But I don't think they sell these things,
Yeah.
because
I don't think they
it's
do.
like an ongoing,
Okay.
Empire.
good, yeah, business investment.
I've known some that have gone that way, and when they
Yeah.
went that way, it went a very negative way. and
Yeah.
So I'm always.
Kensington Place is the
all
one.
kinds of
Yes,
safety
I think that's it,
That's,
yeah.
that's one of their previous ones.
And then back in the Triad area, Winston-Salem or Green, somewhere out there, I think they have two other ones. So,
And the
But-
lady that came and spoke was local. She was,
well, she's been here with this property, trying to work on that,
Oh,
Amanda
okay.
Williams. I don't think she's right around
okay,
here.
so she's not local.
So, just heads up, that's another one related, since you asked about that. And then the only other thing I had was, you know, this is gonna be a polling place again for the elections coming up, and we'll have two windows here where they're gonna be taking over council chambers for a brief period of time. In March, they're gonna have it from March the 4th through the 6th. So that's our agenda review would be in that window. So we either hold agenda review upstairs in the multipurpose room, excuse me, or do we cancel an agenda review meeting? So that's something to be thinking about. I also don't know how much is going to be on the agenda in March. You may have enough things on there that you feel like you want to have an agenda review before but Christine's got it blocked off, the multipurpose room, if we need to move it up there. So if your preference is to not have it, we can talk to you about canceling it, or we just move up there and hold the meeting, so.
We have moved it to Wednesdays in the past too.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or, after they've come back and got the stuff, we moved it to that evening before, so that's just another thought for us.
Yeah,
I think it might be worthwhile to see what the agenda looks like when we get to that time.
okay.
Yeah.
closer to
And then,
time.
and then there's another block of time, it's a little bit longer in October. They set up their October 14th in here through November the 6th, because there'll be early voting, and all the way up to the general election. And then we'd be displaced for 2 meetings, the regular meeting in October and the agenda review from November, so it's just some things to be thinking about. And that's all I have at this point. I'll probably have some other things next week, maybe that tennis thing with Buster Brown and that, because you need y'all to start talking about this before it gets too much more legs, so to speak. And just, I don't know if y'all, there's a gentleman has approached the town who's very involved with tennis. I don't know a lot about him, but Buster Brown.
I've known him for about a decade.
Okay.
He
Former
is
professional
the
players,
Asheville
yeah.
Racket Club.
So he's
Yeah,
still
about
familiar, Buster Brown.
developing or being a partner if we built more tennis courts on the town property, and some cost
He
share
knows what he's doing, huh?
arrangement. And I know he's been talking to some contractors to get some ideas of costs, but, I mean, we need to know where in there, what his expectation would be for use of the court. I mean, there's a lot of things to meet out here before this gets too far along. Because the last email I got was about having our engineer maybe start doing compaction testing, and I just think.
And is he gonna pay for the court, you said? Is that what it was?
Well, he wants to share costs
Yeah.
50/50.
So if he's paying for it, put his name on it. Somebody wants to, but 50/50, that's better than
But
nothing.
then what's the expectation from there?
Yeah, what's the-
Usage
Yeah.
for
That's the big
That's the
thing.
question, yeah.
That's the big thing, is what do you
It's still public
tie
court.
yourself to?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's all I had.
Any other business, council? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn, and Jim made the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned.
Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The seats are way more comfortable up here, aren't they?